The weekly Industry Angel podcast hears from business leaders and entrepreneurs who share their stories and that all-important light bulb moment. This can inspire us all and maybe scratch that itch and kickstart that idea that keeps you awake at night. Welcome to episode 16 of the Industry Angel. Thanks for all your guest suggestions, your guest feedback and podcast reviews. That really helps. That's great. What I want you to do now, I want you to contact me via industryangel.com and suggest a subject. So, what challenges are you facing? What would you like to hear about? And we'll try and sort it out. We'll try and get a guest to answer those queries and challenges. It's nice to connect on LinkedIn and social media with you. Adele McLeay recently reviewed the show and dropped me a line about launching her podcast. That's great to hear, and I'm happy to assist where I can. 21% of Americans listen to a podcast within the last month, and I'm keen to get the UK to achieve some similar results. Remember, you can subscribe in iTunes and also on the Stitcher app if you've got an Android phone. The podcasts then sort of auto-download. Just make sure you've got a Wi-Fi connection. Don't blow your data up. So this episode's a little late. I was in London last week. I had a fantastic time, but very busy. I attended the Great British Business Show in London in the Excel. Met with some past guests of this show, actually. The photos should be up on the social media channels. I also met with some future guests, people who've got lined up in the diary. So that was good to hook up. I also spent a couple of days with Alex Osterwalder and Yves Pigneur from Strategizer, working on the business model innovation. I think it's fantastic. If you want to know more about sort of business model canvas and value proposition canvas, why don't you check out the work we do at Far North over at far-north.co.uk. It's really good stuff. We've had so many entries for our competition to win the signed James Ketchell book. Not so many through LinkedIn or Facebook, but my emails and Twitter notifications are through the roof. I think my battery's lasting about 2 hours. So we're going to draw that at the end of the week, maybe the 20th or so of May. Now, this episode comes with a time back guarantee. If you listen and you haven't enjoyed it, I'll give you 30 minutes of my time over Skype. Today we have leadership consultant and coach, inspirational speaker, author, the treasure seeker, Lisa Spencer-Arnell. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Ian. How are you?
I'm really good. I was so tempted to do that in a boxing style there.
That would have been good.
Now, Lisa, we've had a trilogy of women in business recently. We've had, the episodes were really popular, extremely popular. We've discussed the power of generosity, the given effect, extreme empowerment, and leadership styles. We managed to share some fantastic content. And as I say, the feedback's been tremendous.
Brilliant.
Those trees out there, didn't know what hit them. They've been hugged that much.
That's good.
But I'm really pleased to have you on the podcast today. Now, you are the cherry on the top, okay? The icing on the cake, all right?
Thank you very much. That's kind of...
No pressure.
No pressure at all.
Right, I'm ready to feel the love.
Good.
So, quite often, Lisa, what we do is I ask guests to give a bit of a backstory, sure, where it started from, and that kind of thing. But with you, I'm really interested to know, you're really passionate about leadership.
I am.
Did this come around from a bad experience?
How did you know? Well, it came from, first of all, a very naive 20-year-old who kind of left college having done business studies and languages and kind of really excited about the world and kind of got into the world of work looking for these brilliant, inspirational managers and leaders that I'd kind of learned so much about. To be very disappointed, I have to say, Ian. So that's, I guess, where it started, first of all. Because, I'd learned all about how to lead businesses, how to manage. And then what I found was a lot of politics, a lot of game playing, a lot of people wearing masks, people saying one thing to you, and then in the meeting saying totally different things. And it was like, what is going on? So I guess that's where it started.
And what were those? Were those SMEs or were those large corporates? Or what
No,
kind of
they were corporate organisations. I mean, I started off life working in the textile industry, the lace and textile industry, being from Nottingham. That's when we used to have a lace and textile industry.
Sure.
And then worked in other manufacturing and then service providers. But with some quite large organisations. I worked with one or two family ones as well. But it was a real shock and surprise to me And unfortunately, what I did is got into the habit of probably doing what everybody else was doing. You kind of unconsciously learn the game, learn the rules of, how we operate around here. And I guess that's what a lot of people do, just to survive and get by day to day. And it shouldn't be like that. It's crazy.
It shouldn't. And I'm going to ask you a personal question here. How old were you when you decided that game playing wasn't for you?
Oh, do you know what? That's a really good question. So,
Because the reason I ask is, sorry to jump in, the reason I ask is because I think I discussed with Sharon MacArthur recently,
yeah,
and we both kind of said it does take time. You get to a
absolutely.
point in your life where you think, I'm not having this anymore. And, when is that? Is it 30s? Do you know?
Yeah, I
Is it
think it was in my
40s?
30s. It was in
30s.
my
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
30s. Yeah, I mean, I've been in business now for the last about 14 years. And it was before that, it was kind of building up, and, I was starting. I always had a passion for people. My background was in sales and marketing for many years. Um, and what I realized, I wasn't passionate about sales, but I was passionate about people. And I was always curious to find out what made people tick. So, yeah, I think I was in my 30s. So I think I kind of probably played the game for 10, 12 years. I had a bit of a gap in my late 20s. I gave up what I was doing and went off traveling for a little while and worked abroad, worked overseas. And then I came back. And having experienced that freedom that's one of my values. And then coming back into corporate, I think I felt the squeeze even more.
Yeah. So did you not last long in corporate and came back out again, or
I
did you
did.
change the way you were
I
there,
kind of
or?
changed. I probably changed the way I was. I think that's a good analogy. Yeah, I kind of realised who I was. I did a course at one of the companies that I was with, and I was blown away by this person who said to me, "Lisa, who are you being?" And I thought, what the hell does that mean? I have no
Mm.
clue. Who are you being? And then we talked about values, and I thought, God, I've heard about values. What are they? I should know what my values are, and I didn't. And it was absolutely pivotal to me when I did find out what my values were, who I was. And I now work with those an awful lot when I'm working with leaders one-on-one, or whether I'm working with teams. It's really getting them to the core. Who are you? What is important to you? Because then you can be the real you can be authentic, what makes you tick. When things aren't quite right, why. It kind of gives you that guide.
Sure. So that there's a good lead in. Who are you now? Like, what do you do, Lisa? What's your role? Who do you work with?
Oh, who do I work with? So I work with a lot of different people from different organisations, so a lot from corporate world. I mean, I've got to say, when I started my own business, I'd had such a bad experience latter with corporate. I decided I was never going to work with corporates again. I was going to get out, and I trained in all kinds of things, train the trainer, coaching, various things. And I thought, right, I'm just going to coach people one-on-one, get away from corporate. But what I found was I attracted people from corporate world who wanted to make changes, and then they wanted to bring me in company. So I work with entrepreneurs, I work with leaders in corporate organisations, I work across Europe with different types of organisations. I've had the pleasure of working in 16 countries across 4 continents, serving different clients, and I love it. And it's about all about getting people to be who they are, be at their absolute best, and achieve the extraordinary results that they can.
Fantastic. Now, I know you mentioned to me that a word that you feel passionate about is love in leadership, yeah?
I absolutely do. And as you can imagine, that gets pretty strange looks and, strange responses when I go into organisations. And one of the things I say to them, if I could do one thing in organisations, it would be to change the energy from fear to love. And then I go quiet, and they just look at me and they say, what on earth has love got to do with leadership? I say,
There's a song in there somewhere.
yeah, there could be actually. I say, well, in a word, everything.
Yeah.
Because, what would it be like if you loved coming to work every single day? If your teams loved working for you? If your clients love doing business with you, or your audience really love connecting with you, depending on who they are and what they're doing, then what difference would that make? And they go, oh, yeah, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. because so many people are operating in fear. I said to a team recently, I said, do you know what? There is more people just playing the game. They're wearing masks, wearing a suit of armour. They're just trying to get by through the day. And that's within your team and organisation, and there's bags of competition out there. So you've got to master this. You've got to be able to be honest, to speak your truth. So let's start right now. And I can't believe how some organisations actually choose to lead by fear. It's just, I won't work with those organisations. For me, it's important that organisations see people as an asset to be developed, not a resource to be used.
Yeah, I've been on the wrong side of that as well. And, you're sitting around that table and you feel like you can't give your personal opinion or what's coming from your gut or your heart because you think, this sounds really crazy. You don't want to blurt it out.
Yeah.
So you just shut up or you say something that Gaffer wants to hear. It's no good for the business, is it?
It's absolutely no good for the business. And that is exactly what you just said, in saying what, you think the boss wants to hear. And I actually feel for some of the leaders, people who are right at the top of the larger organisations, because I think sometimes the information they get is so sanitised, they don't see the real truth because people are scared.
Sure. Yeah. And, dead right.
That fear, it's crazy because it kills creativity, it kills connection, it kills productivity, engagement, energy. It kills off the results and ultimately the profits. So it's so important.
So you've enlightened a team, for instance. Let's have an example here. You've went in there and you've kind of pointed a few things out. Can that leader change?
I think they can, because it's, in essence, what I'm trying to do is get them to be actually who they really are. And rather than they've got to be a total different person, but maybe some of the behaviours have got to change. Maybe some of the mindsets have got to change. Getting people to look at, how are you seeing your people? How often do you acknowledge them? Acknowledgement is such an underused tool in business. Just to say thank you. I really appreciate what you've done here. And I was working with a team 2 weeks ago, and there were 3 levels of leadership in the room. And the leader spoke and he shared how he really felt, what the vision was that he saw for the future. And put himself on the lines. He was really quite vulnerable, and some of the team were really shocked. I said, I've never heard you speak like that. But he spoke from the heart. And that's why I think if you bring your heart into your work, if you show love in what you do, I'm not talking the romantic kind of love in work, but bring your heart, be the full expression of you. Wow, what a difference that would make.
I totally agree, and I'm going to throw another crazy word in here, intimacy, because, you can talk to a member of staff about, I don't know, how was your weekend or whatever, but it's just nothing really. But if you're intimate with that member of staff and say, oh, actually, how was your father? I know he was going to hospital, or, whatever, just be intimate with a question and actually want to know about them, be interested in your staff.
Yeah.
You're going to get that bond.
You will absolutely get that bond and that commitment and that loyalty. And people will go so far for you if they feel valued and you listen to them. One of the things that one of my bugbearers is about technology, and because I think never have we been so connected, because we can be in touch 24/7, but yet never have we been so disconnected, because people are looking down all the time on their phones, on their laptops, whatever. And there's a lot of laptop listening around where people are sitting tapping away. Yeah, I'm listening to you. Go and tell me. But there's not that real connection.
I don't know if you've seen, off topic a bit, I don't know if you've seen that picture where they've got traffic lights in the pavement, so people have got their heads down looking at the phone, and there's traffic lights as you go across the zebra crossing, and it's red lights and it goes green.
I love that. No, I haven't seen that picture, but it's so true, isn't it?
It is, you're right.
I was working in London this week, and I was on the train, and I love train journeys. It gives you time to think, reflect. Love looking out the window, and I look down the carriage and all the heads are down in the laps. Nobody's just taking the time just to think and reflect. When I often say to people I work with, so when do you get your thinking time? When do you sit and just be? And they look at me like I've grown 2 heads. It's like, well, when do you get your creative ideas then? When do you get your inspiration and access your own wisdom that is inside you? You know, the reason I talk about being the treasure seeker is because I believe there is buried treasure in every single one of us, in every team, in every organisation. People are often, you know, the themes are, how do we do more with less? Organisations are trying to cut costs,
Sure.
you know, do more with less people, less resources. And I think the answer is really obvious. It's right there. It's in your people. All that untapped treasure is there.
You did right. I mean, I do my thinking time. I've mentioned this a few times on the show when I run.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I can run, and then about 45 minutes later at home thinking, I can't even remember that run.
Yeah.
Because your mind's been somewhere else. You kind of meditate, and you're
Yes.
just different place. Just, you know, your feet are moving,
Yeah.
but you're thinking, and that's where I do it. If I don't do a run, I've got so much going on in my mind. I need to get it out.
Yeah. You need to just calm that down, don't you? And just have a bit of an escape route for yourself.
I mean, I'm thinking there about sport now. My mind's spinning again. It always does. I'm thinking about sort of coaching. You know, I guess there's coaches out there who coach their players in a similar way. I'm just thinking about an example would be Bobby Robson. You know, so Bobby Robson up here in the Northeast, he would be a sort of father-son relationship. You can imagine him being firm but fair,
Absolutely,
but not kind of ruling with an iron fist. You know, putting an arm around the players and you know just giving them that extra edge. Is that the kind of thing that you're thinking of here in leadership?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's being connected to yourself, first of all, knowing yourself really well, knowing kind of what you're like when you're your absolute best, you know. But yeah, actually putting that metaphorical arm around people and being genuinely interested. But also love, you know, we show tough love, don't we? And sometimes we have to have a conversation that may not feel easy. And there's so many unsaid truths in organisations. People kind of avoid those conversations because they feel uncomfortable. But again, leading with love for me is about having those honest conversations, even when it feels uncomfy. So that tough love. And I absolutely, I'm a big football fan myself, Ian. I'm a Forest fan, so we haven't had such a good year this year. But you know,
well, neither we had a northeast either. But I'm not going to go there.
It's not over yet, is it? Look at Leicester and what they've achieved, and it'd be interesting to know what Ranieri's style, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it be just that? Yeah, very interesting.
And for us, we live on past glory. You know, Brian Clough, and you see a lot of his players, and I've met a fair few of them. You know, Stuart Pearce is one of my heroes. You know, and he'll say he was fantastic at he wouldn't let people get too big for the boots, but he would recognise people and acknowledge, and he knew how to bring the best out of people, what other people would consider very average players.
We're going off on a football one here, but I'm going to come back to you. I spoke with Peter Reid and Kevin Ball recently at a sort of talk-in. It was the gaffer and the skipper.
Yeah.
That's what it was termed as. And I said a pretty similar thing. You know, how do you motivate players now? There's loads of money around. You know, you're sitting in a halftime team talk. How do you motivate them? And they said it was a really good question because you just look at each individual player and they all have their own points where you can motivate them on.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just knowing that particular person, whether it be in your team at work, and what motivates them, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. And when I meet with leaders, and particularly if I'm going to be working with their team, and I'll say, tell me about the people. You know, do you know what motivates each of them? Do you know what their values are? And quite often I've got to say people don't know people to that level. As you said, it was like more a superficial kind of, how's your weekend? What have you been up to? But do you really know what has people be at their best? What is it what's the reason for coming to work? You know, and even if for some people they'll say to me, oh, well, you know, the people on the factory floor or the people that work in the stores, they just want their paycheck. And I'll say, yeah, but they've still got their values. They may want their paycheck, but what is it that's really important to them? Well, it could be their family. And what does their family give them? You know, maybe it's security or belonging or whatever it might be, but everybody has those motivators, those values. It's just about spending time and, like you said, being genuinely interested to find those out.
Yeah, and you hear some leaders. I mean, that football one I just mentioned there, how that, you know, the players are very well paid, and the fans go, you know, they're on such a high salary, they don't care, and all that kind of thing. As a leader, sometimes I think we find that within the job role where you expect somebody, because they're on a decent salary, to take that,
Yeah.
to take the flak, to not have the arm around them. Oh, you should, you should be able to do that.
Yeah.
You're a senior manager here. Just, get on with it, kind of thing.
Yeah, you're a grown up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you're right with that. And some leaders have said, you know what, I'm not that good at that. I'm not comfortable with doing that. But they're all right. They know. But psychologists say as human beings, we all need what they call strokes. And when we're very small children, it's physical, but it's verbal. Getting to teenagers and then beyond and adults, everybody needs that acknowledgement and to feel valued. It's one of our basic human needs.
Have you ever worked with somebody like that? Who's give you that stroke? Who made you feel like that?
Yes,
or have you?
I've had 3 leaders who I've worked with in my time who gave me that. I mean, the first guy that I worked with, my very first job in the LACE organisation, I went as the assistant to the export director. And he was fantastic, and he obviously saw something in me, and he really encouraged me and gave me the freedom. I went to exhibitions abroad, and then he said to me, well, do you know what, I think you could manage this market yourself, and various other things, and
Sure.
just really saw something in me and kind of gave me the acknowledgement to just keep going. And even when if I made the odd mistake, and I don't believe in kind of really about mistakes, that awful. Although some companies, some people will say, I didn't do that or suggest that in case it goes wrong, and then, it'll all be on my shoulders and it'll go against me. But, I believe more in a win or learn. If something goes wrong, have a go. And if it goes wrong, just learn from it and do something different.
Sure. I mean, you've heard many times about celebrating failure.
Yeah. And I think people talk about this, but they don't always do it they're not always brave or bold enough to do it.
Right, that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think there is a difference. I mean, I know you're a bit of a Trekkie fan, aren't you? I have a principle which I talk about, no be do. Now, my kids think it's another kind of Star Wars. Sorry, you're a fan of Star Wars. A bit different.
Just because I did one episode, we couldn't stop talking about Star Wars.
There you go.
But yes, go on. I am a Star Wars fan. My son's called Luke as well.
Oh, really?
We couldn't have my daughter as Leia though. She wouldn't allow it.
I know. Good shout, I think. No, but nobody do. We know things, but do we internalise them? Do we integrate them? Or do we be them? And then do we actually do them? Because we are creatures of habit, and people go, oh yeah, I know that. But if you don't do what you know, then nothing's going to change.
Wow, this is good stuff. I'm feeling good.
Good.
Do you know, I was just thinking there, because you're talking about love. It's different from liking someone, isn't it? I guess as a team, you'd love them all, okay, but you'd like some more than others.
Yeah, and that's a good point. You're going to connect with some people more than others, aren't you? And, maybe, and this was one of the things that I think I learned when I did my values years ago, was, there were 1 or 2 bosses or colleagues that I'd had in companies who I just, even though I tried really, really hard, it just didn't work. And I used to think it was me. But now I kind of realise it's probably just a different set of values, a different motivators. But it's about acknowledging that, that's the way it is. And I talk about growing big relationships. I think relationships are right at the heart of achieving good results. And that's not about liking everybody. That's about, being able to put that to one side and just really getting to know people. There's a guy who I think is one of the best relationship makers I've ever met in an organisation. And he works right at the top of a retail chain, and he is famous in the company for having these conversations where when he's taking a new role or when he's leading a project, he thinks about who does he want to and who does he need to really connect with and have a strong relationship with. And he'll just organise to have a quick coffee, in these times when time is such a scarce commodity. He'll say, let's have a 10 or 15 minute coffee, let's sit down. And he'll say, tell me what's really important to you. And can I share with you what's really important to me? And how do we make this work together? And if there's a breakdown in relationship or communication or a project goes wrong, how do we reconcile that? And so he builds relationships really quickly.
What can you do? Here's one for you. Okay. What can you do with somebody? I've worked a lot in software, okay? So technology companies, apologies, all developers listening, but some of them don't have the people skills that, say, the sales guys have. Okay, you and I have had a sales background. You're a very people person. And what do you do with those developers, for instance, who then become leaders by default
Yeah.
because they've been there for a while, or whatever, that they were maybe the founders? They don't become good leaders sometimes. How do you coach those people to?
Yeah, I mean, it depends if they're coachable, first of all, because
Okay.
you can't make people change. You can highlight things. I mean, one of the things I'm passionate about is I will coach people who there's various criteria, and they've got to be coachable, they've got to be open to change, new perspectives. Because I will hold the mirror up and I share my observation and I'll tell them what it feels like to be around them. One of the questions I always ask myself is, how does it feel to be around this person, around this team? What's the energy like? So you can do so much. You can train people up. If somebody, maybe that person's just got a blind spot, so they actually need some honest feedback. And I think people dance around honest feedback. Question I love to ask people is, what's it like to meet you?
Right.
But
Okay.
you can imagine that gets a few kind of blank looks as well. It's like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
really know. Well, have you asked? When I'm working with a team, I'll say to people probably, the first day in the afternoon, so what is it like to meet you? And I don't know. I say, well, I met you all this morning, and the experience was very different from each of you. Because some people will come up and say good morning and shake your hand and, make eye contact. Other people will mumble and just kind of look to the floor. And and I really encourage people to get feedback. When was the last time you asked what it's like to be around you? What's it like to work with you? It takes guts to do that.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's good to do. Even the people you live with, maybe not if you've got teenagers, but partners and kids are very honest. Young kids will give you some really honest feedback. I've got a 5-year-old, and then I've also got my daughter Grace. She becomes a teenager on Monday, so it's I get very different feedback from those two. A lot of companies do 360-degree feedback. You probably come
Yeah.
across it in yourself. I think it can be valuable, but unfortunately, it can sometimes become a tick box exercise for people. So what I often recommend people do is, if they want to know what impact they have, or, getting them to really see their blind spots, like with the example you gave, I kind of say, well, how about you find out what it's like? And I ask them to kind of maybe speak to a dozen people and ask if they'd be up for answering a couple of questions, and not directly with them. I'd send just two questions, and they send it back to me. And the first one is, so if I was doing it for you, Ian, my question would be, so when Ian's at his best, what's he like? How does it feel to be around him? What's his energy like? What behaviours do you see? What's his attitude like? And then the second question would be, when Ian's not at his best, when he's maybe in a bit more of a limited mode, what's it like to be around him? What's his behaviour and attitude and energy like? And it's amazing, the responses people will get, and then the insights leaders will get. So if somebody's got a blind spot about their impact, I would suggest that.
Wow. That's some brave questioning.
But what they do is so I would email people out, and then people would email me back directly. So then when I present it back to them, there's no names by it, so they don't know who said what. And often there's themes then come out. And I said, this is what people see from you when you're absolutely brilliant and on it, and on your A game, when you're really playing to win. And this is what people see when you're not. When you may be in a bit more limited mode, when you maybe get your head down, when you just maybe trying to get through the day, a bit more playing to avoid losing. So, and then it's obviously up to them what they do with it, but they can't argue with the impact that they have.
You're dead right. Yeah. If they've got that knowledge, then it's what do they do? What do they do with it then? I suppose.
Yeah, it is, and you can't bend. You can't, as you said earlier, you're not going to like everybody, so you can't bend to every single little bit of feedback. You end up being a former shadow of yourself. But it's just about being honest with yourself.
You're right. I'm thinking now, though, you've got that knowledge. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. Could that not break a leader or break an organisation when you hear those home truths?
I've never experienced that. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, the one thing it could do, and I guess this comes back to the whole love piece. One of the things I do say to people in relationships, what's the relationship like you've got with yourself? You know, how much do you love, you value, accept, like yourself? Because what it could do, it could knock somebody's self-esteem. If somebody's got quite low self-esteem, low self-worth, then it could have an impact there. But that would be part of my role to have an awareness of that. So to work with that a little bit. And I think there's too many people out there who have got what I would call conditional self-regard or conditional self-esteem. Like, I'm okay as long as I'm successful. I'm okay as long as I'm doing well in business. I'm okay as long as I'm a good manager. I'm okay as long as I'm helping people. I'm okay as long as I'm strong. Whereas, wouldn't it be great if we all had the thought, I'm okay because I'm me. I'm who I am. I'm good enough. I'm enough.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
so
everyone's nodding away here.
So hopefully it doesn't break leaders, and it doesn't break. Certainly, I've never experienced it breaking organisations, but I think and it's an opportunity. And what the important thing there is, if somebody's got kind of lower self-esteem, that they hear and get the acknowledgements. Because we're wired to look out for danger and look for the negative. If kind of during the day you get a dozen compliments and then maybe one small piece of negative feedback, as you're driving home, as you're in bed at night, which do you focus on?
Yeah. I know where you're going with that one.
You know what I mean? And I say to people, you've got to get the acknowledgements, because this is actually your gift. And often people dismiss that. Well, that's just the normal. No. That's your normal, maybe, but that's your gift and talents. That's what makes you who you are and good at what you do.
I met a company last week. I was doing some coaching with a company last week, and the MD had a real bee in his bonnet because he'd had some bad feedback.
Okay.
Like really bad. Like, it was outside and it was like sunny day. So I said, look, come outside, get some fresh air. And he told, and I thought it was nothing. I just thought this. So I just said, look, that's great feedback, because now you can change, you can do something about it. Embrace all that. Nothing's bad. Take it on board. And he got there in the end. But you're right. People do focus on them really bad, not really bad things, but it's bad to them, isn't it?
Yeah, and they can take it really, really personal.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's almost like you need to separate that out, because they've not said you're a bad person. They've maybe said you're not a great listener, or you're not good at communicating what's really going on. But sometimes people get confidence and self-confidence and self-esteem mixed up. Well, if they think I'm bad at that, they must think I'm a bad person, and that's not what's been said.
Wow. So there's going to be people driving along now, listen to this, thinking, when I go back to work, I'm going to email somebody 2 questions and instigate this whole process.
Right. I think they should. And like we said, I think it does take courage, but God, isn't it great to know what impact you have? Ask your partner. I did have one guy when I was doing some work in Lithuania, and it was over a 3-day program. And on day 2, because I believe that self-esteem, self-regard is so important, one of the activities we got them to do was, you're going to come in tomorrow and you're going to make a presentation to your colleagues of, I like me because. And you can imagine, people are a bit concerned about that, a bit anxious. It's like, no, it's really important that you get who you are. So maybe when you go home tonight, ask family who you really trust, what's great about me? I've been asked, I've got to do this presentation tomorrow. And one guy came back and said, my wife said there's nothing great about me.
Oh, my word.
But they then had a conversation. Fortunately, she was joking, but I think...
Now he lives on his own. It's funny because, like, in my business, I'm all over smashing through glass ceilings, helping companies do that. And I think quite a lot of the time, maybe you mentioned before, they're about cost cutting and productivity and lean process. Lots of companies look at that way. But this could be a good way of smashing through that glass ceiling, adding to the bottom line, creating profit. Because if everybody's more, up for it and efficient.
Yes.
It's going to have an effect, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, energy is key, and companies tend to focus on the intellectual energy and the physical energy. So, this is our strategy, right? This is what we need to do. And when times get a bit difficult, we need to be doing more. But actually, there's two other energies that people can tap into. There's emotional energy, the relationship energy, and actually a spirit energy. And that's not about religion or being spiritual, but it's about, spirit of who you are and what's important to you, what you're passionate about, your beliefs, what you stand for. And too often, spirit is hijacked in organisations. But I think if organisations can embrace all four, and when, they really need to dig deep, then think, who do we need to build stronger relationships with around here?
Definitely. I think we all know that we spend more time at work, that we
Yes.
spend more time with our colleagues and our partners and children. So yeah, definitely. So you've co-authored some books, Lisa?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was, that was a glass ceiling for me, and to be honest, because, when you're a kid and people say, if you could do anything, what would you do? And my answer used to be, I'd love to write a book. And then somebody said to me, you write a book? Do you know how hard it is to write a book? And I took that on as a belief. And for years,
right,
I kind of, I'd think, I'd love to write a book. And then my internal chatterbox would go, really? Who's going to listen to what you've got to say? It's really hard to write a book. Do you know how many manuscripts get rejected? Don't be ridiculous. And I kept that belief for years until one day, and I kind of then started my own business. And the thought kept coming up, and I thought, I was always too busy. And then one day I was at an exhibition, and there was a publisher there, Kogan Page, and I was working for a company actually up your neck of the woods, Ian, and they'd asked me to train up some of their leaders in mentoring skills. So I kind of was looking for some new resources that I could kind of recommend to them. And when I was on the stand, and I said, if you've got an idea for a book, what do you do? And they said to me, well, you speak to the commissioning editor. And I said, who might that be? And they said, oh, meet Charlotte. And I kid you not, it was, I now have a belief that it's really easy. But I spoke to Charlotte and she said, what are your ideas? And I had two at the time. And when I said emotional intelligence coaching, her eyes just lit up, because I said, there are so many people. Coaching seems to be the big thing and everybody's changing their name to a coach. But I believe, you've got to be a real quality coach. And to be that, you've got to be emotionally intelligent. You've got to be self-aware. You've got to have that good self-regard. You've got to be looking at yourself. Too many coaches that I've met kind of are not in that place, which was the driver for, there was three of us that kind of put that book together. But yeah, so she loved it and said, oh, please, can I have your card? I'd like to send you a proposal document. And they were asking us, and they commissioned us to write that first book, which was phenomenal. And it went across, and I've got books on my bookshelf of that book in all different languages. It was just crazy. And then I co-wrote another book called Who Stole My Success, which is a tips book all about, basically, who stole my success? It's I did. It's how we get in our own way, and it's all about tips how to overcome that. And the third book was one I absolutely loved. I always do some kind of charity work, some kind of giving back work on a project, and I'm passionate about people. I'm passionate about the next generation, Ian, because I think, particularly with the education system getting so hot on measuring, I think we're in danger of knocking belief and knocking creativity out of our kids. So I was a governor at a school, and it was my daughter's school, and I thought, how can I really help these kids? And I thought, if they became published authors, that would kind of help, that would boost their confidence, wouldn't it? By the time they were 11, they could say, I'm a published author. So I worked with a group of school kids, and they were fantastic. And together we wrote a book called Confidence for Kids by Kids. And they came up with the theme, they came up with the ideas. And I said to them, so if you're going to give other children tips, when do they need more confidence? So they came up with different times at school with friends, when you're putting on a presentation or got an exam, when you're with your family, when you're trying something new. And then they gave me little stories about themselves, and the wisdom in these kids was phenomenal. And then we also got some well-known people to contribute. What advice would you give a 10-year-old about the importance of self-belief and confidence? And we got the likes of Richard Branson contributed, Stuart Pearce, Sean Williams from the BBC, all kinds of different people contributed, and it was all for charity. So that book, it's for Childline Their Schools project, and again the children chose the charity.
I can hear in your voice how proud you are of that book, and it sounds fantastic.
I'm really proud of those kids, and they ended up through the book. They were in the newspaper a couple of times. They were on the radio, and they ended up on TV as well, on the news. I had to work really hard to kind of get a story. A guy one of my clients in Holland, she connected me with a guy in the UK, a media trainer, and bless him, Ben, he came in and he did some free media training with the kids. So they had a real great experience all round of it. They had a book launch. Our Waterstones in Nottingham gave us their room, and we had the local Lord Mayor come, and the kids stood up and read their inserts and gave tips, and it was brilliant.
That sounds fantastic. Well done. Brilliant. So I love that.
Love that.
So if people want to look at your books, how can we get a hold of you?
So the books are on Amazon. The Emotional Intelligence Coaching is on Amazon. The Confidence for Kids by Kids is on it's on Amazon, but if people go to the actual website, confidenceforkidsbykids.com, excuse me, there is all the money goes directly to the charity. So through Amazon, there's a very high percentage obviously goes to Amazon. So the charity gets more money going directly. I'm on LinkedIn, so if anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'd love to hear from you. And in fact, tell you what, here's an offer. The first person that does that, I'll send them a free copy of that book as well.
In addition to me, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
I always ask for signed books. I'm collecting them.
Obviously, and I'm writing my next book at the moment, which I'm writing on my own. So I'll send you a copy of that one.
Oh, brilliant! Well done.
So
that's fantastic.
The Ascended Leader. Are you brave enough? And it's all about the kind of themes that I've shared with you today.
Well, we're going to have to get you back on the show, Lisa, when things get a little bit further down the line with your book, and tell all about it.
Sure, love to. It's been great talking to you, Ian.
And we'll put some links up on the show notes to your LinkedIn profile and bits and pieces like that. Excellent. Well, I'm going to have to go because there's a screaming horde of developers outside. Kick my front door in. Excellent. Well, thanks for your time, Lisa. It's been brilliant.
Really welcome. Great to speak to you, Ian. Take care.
Now, didn't I say you'd enjoy that? Didn't I? Go on, give us a hell yeah. People will be thinking you're a nut now, driving along shouting at yourself. So that was really kind of Lisa offer a free book. I'll leave a link to a LinkedIn page for you to connect with her. And I think she said the first one will receive a book through the post. Excellent. I think I might unconnect and then reconnect with her, and I'll win it. Right, until next time, I'm Ian Farrer. This is Industry Angel, and thanks for listening.